Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Not long ago, I finished The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, the first book of the Dandelion Dynasty. I was quite impressed by this book because I can find quite a lot of Chinese historical elements in it. I think not too much people talk about this side of this story, so in today's video, we will find all these historical references together. I will cover what The Grace of Kings is inspired by, what sort of Chinese cultural references you can find in the story. More or less, I will talk about what had happened in the story, but I will try to be brief and I won't go into every single detail. So this video would be great if you have finished this book already, but if you haven't and you don't mind a little bit of Chinese history lesson, keep watching it. For this video, I have to do quite a lot of research on Chinese history. Don't get me wrong, I do love studying Chinese history and I think it is fun to do so. But I do need to recall my memory about this book and then try to compare it to what had happened in history, so I can systematically compile what I need to cover in this video. It is quite a lot of work, so if you enjoy this video, don't forget to show your support by liking it, subscribe to my channel Dynasty so you won't miss any new content from me. In the future, if I come across other interesting Asian-inspired fantasy, I may also talk about it too. First of all, let's very quickly recap what had happened in The Grace of Kings. In the first book of the series, we're gonna follow a huge cast of characters in this Asian-inspired world called Dara. The health of the current ruler, Mepidere, is deteriorating. There is always opposing forces and individuals who want to seek their chance in this chaotic world. So we will see how this character play. There are quite a lot of characters to follow, but mainly we will focus on two. Kuni, a bandit but with a very caring heart. Another one is Mata, a noble warrior. But with the fall of the emperor, this pair of good friends part away because they got different versions of how this world should be. This difference in opinion will turn into a civil war and decide the fate of Dara. In this book, we're gonna see quite a lot of epic battles with different sort of tactics, stories about friendship, family, and romance. Also some unusual steampunk technology. So if you haven't checked this amazing fantasy book yet, I think it is the perfect time to do so. Now our memory is refreshed and I think it is the great time to see all the historical references. First of all, I want all of you who has read this book, wipe out all your memories about all those steampunk technology and mythical creatures. We are traveling back to 200 BC and I am talking about 200 BC. Jesus Christ hasn't been born yet. So there's no way there's this kind of very creative modern steampunk invention yet. First of all, I think we can take a look at what sort of historical period The Grace of Kings has adopted by the clues I can collect along the way. Let's say what had happened before and what Mepidere, this emperor, has done. This book is inspired by the Qin Dynasty of China, which is between 221 to 206 BC. Then this emperor, Mepidere, you can also find him in history, and he is also the founding emperor of the Qin Dynasty. He is called Qin Shi Huang. Since this emperor, Mepidere, is not really the main character of this story, I will just very briefly talk about how he came to power and what has he done when he ruled. To begin with, let's get back to the start of the Qin Dynasty. The time before the Qin Dynasty is known as the Warring States period, which is from 403 BC to 221 BC. Like the title of this historical period suggests, there are in total of 7 states. Yan, Qi, Chu, Zhao, Wei, Han, Qin. Qin Shi Huang is of course coming from Qin. He came to power very early in the age of 13. With the help of other ministers carry out reform for Qin. One notable minister is called Shan Yang. His reforms and the focus on the philosophy of Fa, which is also known as legalism, sought to attain a rich state and a powerful army and believe human nature is evil. All the effort turned Qin into such a very powerful state. Then Qin Shi Huang think about to expand its territories. They adopt a strategy called collaborating with distant allies and attacking nearby enemies. Qin this state would defeat all those that are close to it first And then one by one, finally, they unify all of these 7 states and mark the start of the Qin Dynasty in 221 BC. This is also what Luan has done in the Dandelion Dynasty, from only the king of Sana to the first emperor of the 7 islands of Dara. One interesting thing to note here is the title Qin Shi Huang. He names himself after this because he thinks so far in history, there's no such greater work has done as him. Shi, this character, means the first, the start. And he wants his sons, the future emperor, to be called like the second, the third, so on and forth, until maybe like 100,000s. Huang, this character, means emperor, and it is so different from just king. Huang implies that this title is given by the gods living above in the sky. This is kind of similar to the Western concept of the divine right of kings. But Huang also means that Qin Shi Huang's ambition is not limited to only ruling the people, but also all the gods above. Now back to the Grace of Kings, and I can't really find any reference about this title, Mepidere. I tried to put it on Google Translate and literally it means nothing. There's no direct translation about it. And then in the book there are quite a lot of things that he has actually done. The elixir, the parade and the assassination, the burning of the classics, and also the mausoleum. Maybe we can first talk about the elixir. Elixir? No, elixir, right? In Chinese history, it is so common to see all the emperors, all the rulers want to rule forever. So they will sort out whatever ways they can find to achieve eternal life. One of the ways they have found is this kind of elixir. So the alchemists will prepare different kind of metals that symbolize longevity, like jade, like gold, and cinnabar. Through alchemy, they do such magic tricks to these metals, and the emperor would take that end products as a supplement. But of course, from now we know that it is just a useless effort. All of this would just only lead to the alchemical elixir poisoning. Another way they may think is in far, far, far away, some sort of gods would grant them such wishes to live forever. So they may launch this kind of very long expedition to seek the advice, seek the answer, seek the wisdom from these gods. This is what Mepidere has done in the Grace of Kings, and this is actually also inspired by Qin Shi Huang, with 500 young men and 500 young women to find the elixir in the legendary Pink Mountain, but return without finding it. Waste of effort. Then back in the book, young Rima and young Kuni witnessed this parade of Mepidere, and then all of a sudden there was a man in the sky riding a kite and trying to assassinate the emperor. In history, Qin Shi Huang did have some parades across the countries and encountered several attempts of assassinations. But of course, the kite man is only a fictional touch. Talking about these parades, Qin Shi Huang has actually done 16 times of it. The goal is to show how strong this empire, this army is, so people won't do anything silly. And also, along the way, they can try to find some elixir for eternal life. Also, during the last parade, Qin Shi Huang died because of a sickness, but I'll talk about this point later in this video. If we are looking at the assassinations, there are 3 attempts in total. One of the attempts took place exactly during a parade. Instead of a kite man, Qin Shi Huang's troops were attacked by a massive metal piece in 218 BC. This attack is actually organized by a man called Zhang Liang. Zhang Liang is actually who Luan in the Grace of Kings is inspired by, and I hope I pronounce it correctly. In the story, Luan did these assassinations on his own with a modified kite and throwing some bombs to the emperor. But in history, Zhang Liang hired someone muscular so that they can throw the massive metal piece, and I will talk about this character more later in the story because we know how important Luan is. If you remember from the story, Mepidere ordered to destroy all the classes that is not under the same language system. Qin Shi Huang also did the same in history. But I would say that it is more about standardizing all the measurements and try to unify how people think after the Warring States period. During the Warring States period, different thinkers can come up with different philosophies so they can attract the rulers. One of them is Confucianism, and if you look at the Grace of Kings, They always quote someone named Kong Fizi, and I think it is based on the Confucianism. But after so much method try to unify all these 7 states, which ruler would like to see everyone think so freely? So Qin Shi Huang want to unite the nation with the central ideas and burn the classics that is not fit to this standard. Later, 2 thinkers who helped producing elixir spread the rumors about Qin Shi Huang. This caught the attention of the emperor. He found out all those that are responsible for spreading this rumor and buried them all alive. So some discussion nowadays would see Qin Shi Huang as a dictator because he doesn't allow any opposing voice or anything that would hinder his rule. But some may say that he helped the development of China and laid out the foundation. Because let's say weight, currencies, and measurement are all in the same unit and we have a central idea to follow. Then Mepidere ordered quite a lot of large-scale infrastructure and mobilized all the men in the nation to help building them. This also happened in history. Qin Shi Huang ordered the building of the very famous The Great Wall, but bear in mind it is not like building it up from scratch. It is more like linking up all different parts of the defensive walls in the Warring States period from different states. He also laid out more roads, built more like canals for business. The massive palace, Pink Palace, which Yu or Mata gonna burn later in the story. The last one is the biggest project, the mausoleum of the first Qin emperor. Same as Mepidere's, this mausoleum is buried with emperor servants, women, and other treasures. There are also a whole army that is made up of terracotta, which is very impressive. But this mausoleum is filled up with mercury to replicate river. We all know that mercury is poisonous to human, so it's gonna make the exploration of this whole mausoleum very difficult. Majority of this mausoleum hasn't been fully explored yet. Thanks to this, thieves won't try to steal anything from it unless they want to risk their life. So this mausoleum is very well preserved. I think that's all for Mepidere aka Qin Shi Huang, and it is quite a lot already. Finally, we can move on to talk about our 2 main characters, Kuni and Mata. Other than Luan is inspired by Zhana, which I mentioned earlier. Kuni is Liu Ban, the starting emperor of the Han Dynasty. Mata is Yu, hegemon king of Western Chu. You have to remember these 2 names well because we're gonna talk about them a lot later. Liu Ban, Kuni, Mata, Yu. Okay? Kuni, Liu Ban, Yu, Mata. Remember, right? Okay? And don't worry, if I see any other inspiration of characters, I will definitely mention it later. Rather than going into the bibliographies and read out all the details about these 2 characters, I would follow when certain significant historical events happen and how they relate to the Grace of Kings. So, in the Grace of Kings, Mata did watch one of the Mepidere's parade and Yu did it as well. It is also at that time he said, I can replace him. In terms of appearance, Mata is very special because he got double pupil. This goes the same as Yu, but only one of his eyes got double pupil. And it is a sign of extraordinary person because it is a mark of king. Liu Ban aka Kuni also watched one of the Qin Shi Huang's parade. Instead of being like Yu saying like, I can replace this emperor, his comment is, a king should be like this. Same as Kuni and Jia in the story, Liu Ban marries Liu Zhi when there's like a noble party in town. In the beginning of the Grace of Kings, many people were not happy with this kind of large-scale massive project, and if you don't follow the rules properly, you will receive very harsh punishment. As well as with the death of the emperor Mepidere, no one can impose a harsh rule over the people anymore. Once again, what happened during his death and after his death, I will talk about that later in the video. The first group to revolt was Huno Krima and Soto Shijin. Their team cannot make to the mausoleum in time, and to avoid punishment, they make up a sign from the god, finding a message in a fish saying, Huno Krima will be king. We can see the same happen in history. This time it is about Chen Sheng and Wu Guan in 209 BC. They also forged a message in a fish claiming Chen Shen will be a king. This attracted a mass to follow them. This part of history, mobilizing the peasants to follow them, also known as take sticks and revolt, or Chen Shen stands to arms. Now we can get back to Kuni. Kuni at this time was like someone escorting all these criminals. But one day he lost most of his criminals, and to once again avoid any punishment, without any choice, he turns into a bandit. One of the funny things he did is to slash a white snake, thanks to Jia's courage herbal tea. Liu Ban, Kuni's inspiration, also killed a white snake while escorting criminals in 210 BC. Interestingly, suspicious people started to believe that it is a sign from the god to replace the Qin dynasty, but this time there's no herbal tea involved. At the same time, Mata and his uncle, Fin, also like history, recruiting their own followers to overthrow the emperor. In history, there is no given name to the weapons Xiang Yu used. Back into the book, it was Mata visiting Huno Krima, the in-spring rebellion leader, but found out that they are just like another group of selfish opportunists, so Mata killed them all. But if we are looking at the history, it was the Qin emperor suppressing this rebellion led by Chen Shen and Wu Guan. Xiang Yu has nothing to do to stop this rebellion. Now, as more states try to oppose the Sina emperor, the leading figure in here is King Sufi, the leader in like a council of war. This also leading up to Kuni and Mata meeting up for the first time, and they both admiring each other. But I don't think this has anything to do with history. From what I can find, the leading figure after Chen Shen is actually Xiang Yu's uncle, Xiang Niang. At that time, he wanted to gain the support of the state of Chu, so he found the grandson of the Chu king. I forgot some details here. I remember some states in the book did the same, but I forgot which one it was. So if you know the answer, leave it in the comment below. Also around this period of time in the book, the Sina emperor also sent troops to suppress the rebellion. One of them is about the king of Rima, a fisherman later brought back to the palace to be a king. Seeing the army from the empire is coming, he pretended to surrender, but actually he lit himself up. This actually happened in history too. This plot is inspired by a king from a state called Wei. He was from the noble of this state, Wei. Instead of brought back to power, he was following the rebellion and later become the ruler of this state, Wei, which belonged to him legally. Soon after Qin Emperor took down the rebellion leader Chen Shen and Wu Guan, they came to this state, Wei. The ruler agreed to surrender and lit himself up, so people in Wei no need to be killed by the Qin. Another sad story. Back to Kuni and Mata, they are now holding the city of Zudi against Namen from the empire. This siege took some time. Namen want to lure them out to fight, so they send out like leaflets of Kuni and Mata dressing up like a woman. Kuni find it funny, but Mata want to fight. So Kuni instead sent Mata up to the sky by a kite and wait for the help from his uncle, Fin. This part, of course, is a make-up because I can't find anything of it related to history, let alone all the leaflets and all the kites. Liu Ban and Xiang Yu did fight together in history from time to time, but nothing like this battle of Zudi happened. Interestingly, in history, it is around this time Xiang Yu's uncle, aka Fin, lost the battle against Qin. Unlike in The Grace of Kings, Kikomi, this princess, is blackmailed by the general Namen. She has to choose either Mata or Fin to kill. For the love of her state and also her people, she chose Fin to kill. Again, nothing like this happened in history. This is just like a made-up, and Kikomi is only a fictional character. Xiangnan, Fin's inspiration, is killed in a battle, but never involved in like a romantic encounter that worsened his relationship with Xiang Yu. Outside all these battles, we can finally get back to the palace. With the death of the emperor Mepidere, Pira and Crupo decided to claim Arashi to be the second emperor. Arashi is still young, so the power is more on the hand of Pira and Crupo. Now this part is actually inspired by a historical event called the Conspiracy of Shaqiu in 210 BC. Pira and Crupo represents Zhao Gao and Li Si respectively. Like I mentioned earlier, Qin Shi Huang enjoyed a parade to show off to find the elixir for eternal life, but sadly he passed away in his final parade. He had written a will and the throne should be claimed by the crown prince, but Zhao Gao and Li Si intercept this message and the will is never sent. Then they kill the crown prince and claim the younger son of the Qin Shi Huang to be the new emperor. After setting up this new era, Zhao Gao was scared about what people gonna tell to the emperor about what he has done in the past, so he kind of imprisoned the emperor by sending him like toys, women to play with. Then no one got time to talk to the emperor and the emperor would know nothing about Zhao Gao. Also like in The Grace of King, Zhao Gao aka Pira wants all the power and he can't allow Li Si or Crupo blocking his way. So he forged evidence about Crupo's new conspiracies and then using the same way of torturing in the book, making Li Si so confused who is coming around and ask about this investigation. At this moment, the emperor still believes in him. But before Crupo has met people from Pira, if he claimed innocent, he would got tortured again. So even when it is the time of the emperor sending people to ask about what is going on, Crupo didn't tell anything and say he is guilty. At last, Li Si, Crupo's inspiration, was executed in 208 BC. To solidify his ruling, one day Pira brought a deer to the court and claimed it is a horse. This is a way to see if anyone in the court gonna support this ridiculous claim or are you brave enough to tell the truth. This has also happened in history and later known as this idiom, calling a deer a horse. This is widely used to describe a situation where a person falsely identifies a situation in order to deceive others or saying the opposite of the truth to justify an action. At this point of The Grace of Kings, Kuni is like the Duke of Zudi. Mata was sent to Wolf's Paw after the death of his uncle. Zudi announced whoever captures Emperor Arashi will be made the king of Gafika. I think it is the biggest turning point of the book. First of all, we have this epic battle. Battle of Wolf's Paw fought between Sana Empire and Mata. It was such a great battle because Mata was leading such a small army, turning the tide and winning this war. This in history is known as the Battle of Yelu in July 207 BC. The situation is kind of similar. Xiang Yu, like Mata, losing his uncle, he was sent to Yelu to help a state called Zhao. At that time, the Qin Empire has just taken down Xianliang. The combined force coming together has over 400,000 soldiers. Compared to Xiang Yu, he only got 50,000. Mata in the story ordered to burn down all the ships, but in history, Xiang Yu not just saying down all the ships but also destroying all the cooking equipments. Anyone can only bring 3 days of rationing. Without anything else to lose, Xiang Yu and his army can fight like crazy. According to the records, every soldier from Xiang Yu can take down 10 Qin's soldiers. Later this is known as the idiom to break the cauldrons and sink the boats, meaning to cut off all the means to retreat to show your determination. While Mata is so busy fighting in Wolf's Paw, Kuni listened to the advice of Luan, first riding Kruben and then land to the heart of Pan, this like harmonious city by aircraft. No one in the palace expected this sudden attack and the Emperor Arashi surrendered to Kuni. This part of course is fictional. There would be no Kruben, no aircrafts in history, or at least at that part of history. Like I said before, Luan, this smart minister, is based on a philosopher called Zhang Liang, the one earlier who tried to murder or to assassinate Qin Shi Huang. He did advise Liu Ban aka Kuni to act. Instead of like flying in the sky with aircrafts or like riding Kruben, he asked Liu Ban's army to persuade Qins. It is like what we're gonna see more in the later book, where they will persuade the Qin generals along the way to the capital and take down important locations. Seeing this can't be stopped, the Qin Emperor surrendered to Liu Ban in October 207 BC. After coming to the palace and see how beautiful everything is, Liu Ban wanted to relax a little bit, like in the story. But Zhang Liang stopped this thought and he asked Liu Ban to abolish 3 harsh laws from the Qin Empire. This later known as an idiom, to agree on 3 laws. Similar to the story, Liu Ban heard about Xiang Yu is coming and they want to do something to stop him becoming a king. Remember the promise, whoever captured the emperor first who's gonna be a king. In the Grace of Kings, it is more about Rima, one of the closest friends Kuni got since the beginning of the campaign, didn't send a message and create some sort of misunderstandings. In history, it is Liu Ban trying to prevent Xiang Yu coming to the capital. Now coming back to the story, Mata came to the Soto Pass and final Kuni soldiers were blocking his way. He was furious and felt betrayed. When Kuni knew about what is going on, he listened to the advice of Luan, leave the capital ASAP. This part I would say is quite close to what happened in history, and then coming to the next event, the Banquet is more dramatic in history. In the Grace of Kings, after Mata arrived in Pan and burned down the palace, by the way, the real one in history is called Pan Palace, which I mentioned earlier and rumored to be, it was burned for 3 whole months. So you can imagine how large it's gonna be. After all the lootings, after killing the last emperor of this empire, he invited Kuni to this banquet. In here, Mata accused Kuni sneaking into Pan while he is fighting so hard in Wuspor. But Kuni claims that it is not just done for himself, he also want to help his brother to win. Seeing Mata is not in favor in this discussion, Pairing, Mata's advisor, wanna kill Kuni. Very luckily, Kuni's men defend him and they can live safely. This historical event is known as the Feast of Swan Goose Gate in 206 BC. This banquet is also Xiang Yu inviting Liu Ban to come and there are some dramas happen in this tent. According to the rules at that time, only the most privileged one can sit facing east, and then the least would be sit facing west. In a feast, of course, you would like to show respect to your guests by letting them sit facing east, the one that is sit by the most privileged ones. But Xiang Yu sit there already, meaning that he didn't see Liu Ban, this guest, is on the same level as him. First drama. And then the inspiration of pairing, Mata's advisor called Fan Zhen asked Xiang Yu's cousin to come over and do a sword dance. He was like getting closer and closer to Liu Ban. Zhang Liang seeing this at once called help from the general outside and that general come to the tent. Xiang Yu gifted him 2 liters of alcohol and that general downed it in one go. And then Xiang Yu gave him the front leg of the pig and that general used the sword to cut it and eat it. He also said to Xiang Yu, Liu Ban did come into the capital first, but he never wanted to be a king himself. Xiang Yu not bothered to give Liu Ban anything and now even want to kill him. This general asked Xiang Yu to stop this thought. Later, Liu Ban pretend to go to the loo, but instead he is escaping, leaving Zhang Liang to send the last gift to Xiang Yu. And Fan Zhen also know that in the future, the biggest rival to the throne would be Liu Ban. But Xiang Yu didn't make a critical decision at this banquet and let Liu Ban be dead. So coming to now, we will have this folk saying using the title of this banquet, Feast at Swan Goose Gate, as a metaphor, implying this meal doesn't have a good intention. In the Grace of Kings, after this banquet, Mata is the one deciding the fate of Dara. He divided up into different states, rewarding those that has been following him long, and then punish those that got bad intention. Mata's decision can be questionable and didn't listen to the advice of pairing. And his biggest rival, Kuni, got a far away land called Dasu. This also marked the start of the war between Kuni and Mata. I would say that the Grace of Kings has simplified this part of history. In the first half, it will be about the allies fighting the Sana Empire. And then coming into the second half, we will be looking at the battle between Kuni and Mata. We did see, let's say, Kuni taking down some minor Taro states in the story, but in history, there are something more going on with all these states. For the sake of this video and also my throat and my voice, I will pick up those battles or events that gonna inspire the book. Maybe we can first start with a new character, a very important one called Mazoti in the book. In short, she was an orphan and has to steal for a living. Not until she met an old woman who would change her fate and realize she has to find a proper job. Luckily, she found a job as an errand boy and met a dog master, the one that saw her potential and taught her a lot about tactics and life. Later, she joined the army of Kuni because at that time they expand their recruitment to not limiting to only men but also women. To get a chance to see Kuni, she caught the attention of Cogo Yelu, a very important advisor to Kuni. From here, I guess we can trace the identity of Qin and Cogo in history. Maybe we can start with Qin. In history, she is actually a man who is called Han Xin. What he has gone through in history is so close to what had happened in the book, or maybe it is the other way around. I can't see he was a thief before, but that old woman Jin met is inspired by the same story. Han Xin luckily met her and this old woman kept cooking for him. In the end, Han Xin wanna thank him and he said he definitely gonna pay her back. But the old woman said, "A young man such as you cannot feed himself. I take pity that you are a descendant of nobility and so I feed you. I did not do so expecting anything in return." Later, Han Xin met some gangsters. Even though he is much taller and carrying a sword, this gangster thought he is actually a coward. If Han Xin don't want to die, he has to crawl under their thighs. This is named as the humiliation under your crotch, which is the worst humiliation you can get as a man. During the rebellion, he actually followed Xiang Yu first, but seeing that there's no future following this leader, he joined Liu Ban's instead. Very luckily, he met a very important advisor called Xiao He, whose chorus is inspired by. Fun fact here, Zhang Liang, Han Xin, Xiao He, three together is known as the three heroes of the early Han Dynasty. So we can see how important these three advisors are in history. If you remember from the book, Kuni was so worried about the sudden disappearance of Coral, but in fact, he was chasing Jin. This also happened in history. Han Xin thought that there's no future again following Liu Ban and decided to leave. Xiao He realized how important Han Xin gonna be and really appreciate his talents. He literally told Liu Ban, "You can't find anyone else like Han Xin. Missing him is like losing two arms." Very quickly, Xiao He find Han Xin and they together met Liu Ban. Han Xin very quickly pointed out the problems of Xiang Yu's rewarding system of the Taro states. Those that are very close to him can get a piece of land and even reward the old Qin generals that the public hate. On the contrary, if you remember, when Liu Ban got to the capital, he abolished three harsh rules from the Qin emperor. So why the public would prefer Xiang Yu's over Liu Ban? Now we can get back to the Grace of Kings. After Mata dividing up the territories, Kuni has to move to Dasu, leaving Jia and his family near Mata as hostage. Listening to the advice, Kuni burned down all the ships and pretend to behave, showing to Mata and Barama, the general from the old emperor, that he got no ill will to the new emperor. This of course is just an act. With the talent of Jin, they have invented something like a modern submarine with the shape of the Kruban, the mythical creature in this world. So they are secretly moving closer to the center of the map. We all know that this kind of submarine is just like a fictional touch, but this in fact is based on the tactics by Han Xin, Jin's inspiration. Listening to his advice, Liu Ban pretend to repair an old burnt bridge, while Han Xin lead an army through Chencang, taking down central China. This is known as a tactic from the 36 stratagems. Openly repair the gallery roads but sneak through the passage of Chencang. Basically, it means cheating with a diversion. Also, I missed a point earlier. After Xiang Yu dividing up all the territories, he actually claimed himself to be the hegemon king of Western Chu. If I remember correctly, in the book, it is more for Mata to earn the title of hegemon rather than claiming this title himself. So there is a slight difference here between the book and history. Now in the story, Kuni is back to Zudi. With the help of Pairing, Mata's advisor, they come up with a clever plan. First from a fake army and then jumping from the sky with something like a modern parachute. Of course, this story exaggerates a lot to make it more exciting, but in history, this battle is based on Battle of Pangchan in 206 BC. At that time, Xian Yu is actually quite busy with settling down all these riots, giving Liu and his allies the chance to get back to Guangzhou. After they claimed Pangchan, they started to relax a little bit, but Xian Yu see it as a chance to reclaim his territories. With only a 30,000 army, he launched a sudden attack and successfully defeated a 560,000 one. That's incredible. This is a really great example to show you how good a general Xian Yu is. Finding out the weakness of your enemy and the timing to attack. Don't forget they also win this battle with such a small army as well. At this point of the story, Mata got an upper hand. He even wanted to persuade Kuni to surrender by holding his father as hostage, threatening to cook him. But Kuni gave a witty answer. Basically, it is like, we are brothers. My dad is your dad. If you're gonna cook our dad, don't forget to share a bowl with me. Mata was very disappointed with this answer and see no honor in this man Kuni. This is exactly the same story between Liu and Xian Yu in 203 BC. After this, both sides agree on the Treaty of Hong Canal. Nowadays, in the Chinese chess game called Xiangqi, you can actually find the Hong Canal on the chessboard to remember this part of history. After this event, Kuni listened to the advice of Luan not to listen to this agreement. With the help of other characters, let's say Cogo is not with Kuni anymore, but he is in the back focusing on the rationing. Other bandits cutting off the supply lines of Mata, and then Jin took over Rima. Kuni is slowly gaining the upper hand in this war. From here, we also know the identity of a servant called Soto, who was working so close with Jia, Kuni's wife, and the reviews is actually quite shocking. But in history, I can't find any evidence to support her role in this war, so I think Soto, this character, is fictional. When Jin is attacking Rima, she met a very interesting opponent called Sato Rusi. What's so interesting about Sato, by the way, he is also my favorite character, is that he gonna follow every word of Confucius, the one true sage. He would literally follow every word of him, but of course it didn't help him to win the war. Once again, I can't pair up Sato with anyone in history, but Confucius, this philosopher, is quite obviously based on Kongzi or Kongqiu. He is the one proposing Confucianism, emphasize personal and governmental morality, harmonious social relationships, righteousness, kindness, sincerity, and a ruler's responsibilities to lead by virtue. His thinking is always being praised, and even nowadays, students has to study it in Chinese literature or Chinese lesson. So in the Grace of Kings, you can see quite a lot of times some advices will quote from Confucius, and you can also see his influence on how people work. The other thing I can relate to history is the falling between Mata and Pairing. We know that Luan and Cogo come up a smart plan to distance the relationship between these two. Through Mata's messengers, they act like as if Pairing got something big cooking, making Mata thinking Pairing is not loyal and leading to the loss of this important advisor. This is in fact true in history. Pairing is inspired by Fan Zhen, a very important advisor to Xian Yu. After falling to this trap, Xian Yu thought that Fan Zhen is not loyal anymore in 204 BC. Unlike in the story, Fan Zhen was free to go, but sadly, not long later, he was passed away because of a back disease. This is also another tactic from the 36 stratagems, known as let the enemy's own spy sow discord in the enemy camp. It is like creating an internal struggle among the enemy so you can win more easily. So very quickly, we come to the final battle at Cogo. Mata is running low on resources and Kuni and his allies are not far away. In history, Xiang Yu's army is actually facing the same dilemma. Before reaching to this point, Han Xin gains inspiration, working along with other allies, setting up a massive network of traps, forcing Xiang Yu's army got nowhere to go and have to retreat to Gaixia. This tactic is known as ambush from 10 sides, quite literally meaning that you are surrounded by the enemies from every possible side. Funny note here is about a movie called House of Flying Daggers. Even with this English name, the Chinese name is actually the same as these tactics. In this final confrontation, Kuni utilized every advantage he got. One of it is to send the woman he has recruited to sing to the martyrs' camp. They sing the song of their home and making the soldiers losing their last will to fight. This tactic is known as surrounded on 4 sides by the Song of Chu. In the story, Liu Ban asked his people to sing the Song of Chu, where Xiang Yu is actually coming from. Nearly all the soldiers from Xiang Yu's side thinking that now Liu Ban has taken over their home, otherwise how can they find so many people sing the song of their home? So most of the soldiers on Xiang Yu's side don't want to fight anymore. They don't want to fight people that is close to their home. This tactics implies that you are surrounded by your enemy and you can't find any help. Xiang Yu, seeing he has lost already, leading the last 800 soldiers to escape. When Liu Ban heard about this news of escape, he sent 5,000 people to chase him. Xiang Yu lost his way and Liu Ban soldiers can easily chase them. When they retreated to the Wu River, only 26 people still following Xiang Yu. Xiang Yu cannot travel back home even though someone offered him the help with the transport. He thinks about all those people that has been following him since the beginning of the conquest and how many people left with him now. He cannot look at the face of his people with pride even though he can return home. Liu Ban's army finally catch up. At this point, Xiang Yu can still fight like crazy, taking 100 enemies down. But he saw a childhood friend on the side of Liu Ban. Knowing that his had gone worth quite a lot of rewards, he slit his throat and let his friend to take his head because of their friendship. But this makes all the soldiers from Liu Ban rush in and take a piece of him, of this warrior. Quite sad ending in it. This last battle fought is known as the Battle of Gaixia in 202 BC, and the final confrontation in the Grace of Kings is inspired by it. Before his death, Xiang Yu actually wrote a poem known as the Hegemon's Lament. My strength plucked up the hills, my might shadowed the world, but the times were against me, and Dapple runs no more. When Dapple runs no more, what then can I do? You, my you, what will your fate be? You here is like the Lady Mira in the Grace of Kings. In the story, we know that Mira's brother has been following Mata since the beginning of the conquest. There are some backstory to this character, to this romantic encounter. In history, no one knows about the birth of Yu or where did she come from, but same as Lady Mira, Yu also commit suicide in the Battle of Gaixia. Finally, we reached the ending of the Grace of Kings. Kuni set up the House of Dandelion and started a new era of ruling. In history, Liu Ban started the Han Dynasty in 202 BC. The capital is Chang'an, with consort Lü aka Jia as the empress. The crown prince is the eldest son, Liu Yin. One last thing to note here is the departure of Luan Jia. He also warned about Jin not to be too ambitious. And then he started his own journey in the wild, and in the next book we know that he gonna meet up with a new character called Mimi. This also happened in history between Zhang Liang and Han Xin and known as the idiom, to put away the bow once the birds are gone. This means that during a hunt, a bow is so useful to shoot all the birds. But what's the use of this bow when all the birds are gone? This implies that during a war, anyone would appreciate any talent. But when an emperor claims a throne, what's the point of having so much more talents? It kind of warns people with talents not to show off this much, otherwise you will shine too much and attract the wrong attention and got yourself killed. That's pretty much what had happened in history. The last thing I really want to talk about is the flowers, Dandelion and Chrysanthemum. In the story, Kuni represents the former and Mata represents the later. It also gives a lot of meanings to Dandelion, this flower, the herbal use, how the seed spreads, and the invisible ink. But in Chinese cultures, poets tend to praise chrysanthemum more. Chrysanthemum is one of the 4 noble plants in Chinese culture. It emerges early in spring, but only bears buds when autumn falls and as other flowers wither. Against the chilly frost, it comes into full bloom, with a bright spectrum of color, yet with a low-key elegance. This represents a tranquil mind of indifference to fame and fortune, which reflects the pursuit of a classical Chinese gentleman. So I do find it interesting that Ken Liu didn't pair Kuni up with a noble plant, but instead a dandelion. And Mata is representing this kind of Chinese gentleman that don't care much about fortune and money, but he is more of a military man. This is pretty much what I want to cover in this video, and honestly, my throat is killing me. I hope that you will find my research useful and know about how the Grace of Kings is inspired by the late Qin Dynasty in China. Once again, the preparation of this video is really exhausting, so if you find this video interesting and funny, don't forget to give it a like. If you don't want to miss any content from me, make sure you have subscribed to my channel. I'll see you all real soon. Goodbye!